Jimmy Butler to the Golden State Warriors. How does that sound? It could be a reality. The Warriors reportedly would pursue Jimmy if Miami makes him available. Is he the right fit, though? I'll explain next on Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. So glad to have you here. I am your host, Kylan Mills, a play-by-play broadcaster, host with NBC Sports Bay Area, the Big Ten Network, and many more. On today's show, we will be covering the possibility of Jimmy Butler to the Golden State Warriors. What are the latest reports, and is he the right fit? Is he the one the Warriors should be targeting? Also, if not Jimmy, who are some of the other names in the mix? I'll give you two that I think would be good, if not great fits for the Warriors. And then finally, Steph playing where? In a random gym in Folsom, lighting people up with the night. I'll explain that whole situation coming up on today's show. Let's start off with Jimmy Buckets possibly coming to the Golden State Warriors. Rumors really started heating up after the Miami Heat star shared an Instagram story photo in front of a flight board that showed the destination as San Jose. My take right off the top: no, the Warriors should not pursue Jimmy Butler in a trade. The Dubs don't need another player who's old by NBA standards, that is. He's 34, turns 35 in September, so would be 35 for the entirety of next season, has had a history of injuries, and is seeking a max extension. Would Jimmy Butler be an upgrade from Andrew Wiggins? Sure, but the Warriors would have to also move major assets. Butler is set to receive $48.8 million in the final year of his contract with the Heat next season. There's no reason why the Warriors would want to take that on for an aging and injury-prone star. Per reports, he's seeking a 2-year, $113 million max extension from Miami, and that's what he would be looking for should he start looking elsewhere and be unhappy because Miami can't offer him that type of dough. So let's rewind to the facts about this whole situation so far. It has not been confirmed that the Heat are shopping Jimmy around, but Miami team president Pat Riley sure made the future sound uncertain at their end-of-season press conference about a month ago. Here's the exact quote because I don't want to twist it. He said, quote, "We have not discussed that internally right now, Riley, on whether or not the Heat were going to strongly pursue that max extension and signing and bringing Jimmy back." He said, quote, "We have to look at making that kind of commitment and when we do it. We don't have to do it until 2025, actually, but we'll see. We haven't made a decision on it, and we haven't really in earnest discussed it." Yeah, so that's not really a ringing endorsement from an organization that's like, yes, no matter what, we are going to make sure Jimmy Butler comes back, which, like, for example, would be what the Warriors say about Steph Curry whenever those conversations happening. Like, there's no question. Clearly, there are questions in the air, and because of that, there are starting to be conversations floating around in the media about possible trade destinations for Jimmy Butler. The other side of this conversation is, would the Warriors be interested? The Athletic's Anthony Slater expects the Warriors to enter the conversation if the Miami Heat make Jimmy Butler available. He has reported that, and he is very plugged in, a reliable source. The Warriors are looking to make big moves this offseason. That's something that's been confirmed or at least been reported across media outlets. I've heard that from people in and around the organization, that this is a front office that is willing to make major moves, and they realize that they cannot just run it back with the same core. That's the one thing that is for sure. Big time changes need to come. Now, it is confirmed that Jimmy Butler did make a trip to the Bay Area last week after that Instagram story blew up and started going crazy on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it. He later posted on his Instagram story that he was at Stanford. I also have friends at Stanford who saw him on campus. So the full reporting story now is that he flew into the South Bay Thursday afternoon, went to eat at Nobu Palo Alto, went to see Fred again at the Frost Amphitheater on Stanford's campus, stopped at the Stanford Shopping Center, did a whole little off-season jaunt in the Bay Area. Is there more to the story? Should we be looking into it? That I don't know. But it is very interesting that he made this little quick trip up to the Bay Area. Here's the bottom line, though. Jimmy Butler is not the big signing that's going to make this Warriors team title contenders. He is not the right piece. Here's why. Well, first, I want to say that basketball-wise, I think Jimmy Butler would be a fine fit. He's an elite defender. You're talking about a 6-time All-NBA defensive team selection. Technically second team defensive team, but whatever. He's got explosiveness. He's a good finisher. He can shoot the 3 ball well enough. I think he's around 35 to 36 in terms of career shooting. He would be an upgrade on the wing to Andrew Wiggins, definitely based on Andrew Wiggins' play the last 2 seasons since the Warriors title run in 2022. But to me, there are too many downsides with Jimmy Butler. Number one, the injury issues. Jimmy Butler just suffered an MCL sprain in April, was ruled out during a play-in game for Miami. It was his right knee, which he's had issues with before. He had surgery to repair a torn meniscus in that same knee in early 2018, had to miss a ton of time. When you look at the list, knee injuries, ankle injuries, back injuries, tailbone injuries, I just started kind of scrolling through injury reports with Jimmy Butler. There are an array of issues, but to me, ongoing knee issues are something that I keen in on. Jimmy Butler has not played more than 65 games in a single season for the last 8 years. The last time he played more than that was his last season with the Bulls in 2016-2017. That seems like ages ago, in my opinion. And then the ongoing knee issues is a big concern. That's the kind of stuff that can force players to retire at some point. Your joints can't handle it. When you've had surgery on a knee, there are going to be extra factors, like sometimes there's scar tissue, excess inflammation, lingering structural problems. Sometimes it's the way you're built. It can't handle the grind anymore. Recurring issues are the kind of thing for an older player that have to be a big concern. Older player, the second part of this. Jimmy Butler turns 35 in September. He'll be that old throughout next season. And you're looking at a guy who wants to be signed a couple years beyond that. The Warriors do not need to get older. For the love of God, can they sign someone under 30? When they tried to hype the signing of Chris Paul, I'm sorry, but I was like, why? Why are we bringing in a 38 or 39-year-old to one of the oldest teams in the NBA? The Warriors actually specifically had the 3rd oldest team in the NBA this past season. And the older players aren't just like role guys, like your 10, 11, 12 on the bench that are on vet minimums. Steph, Clay, and Draymond, your big 3, are all in their mid-30s. They led the team in minutes per game. Chris Paul also often started this past season, was put in situations where he was closing out games, big role running the point in the second unit, and you're looking at a guy who's 39 years old. Those are 4 key pieces that are mid-30s plus. Kevon Looney, I'm convinced the oldest 28-year-old I've ever seen run. Love him to death. Just did an entire episode breaking down his possible future with the Warriors, which hangs in the balance with Chris Alvarez. You can check that out. But can we sign a player under 30? That's the bottom line. Is that so hard? You don't want to be the youngest team in the league. You want to find that middle ground. I don't think it's any coincidence. The Dallas Mavericks, Boston Celtics, Denver Nuggets, they're right in the middle of the pack in terms of average team age at about 26 years old. And those are the teams that you're looking at being title contenders this season. You have to have the right mix of youth, the right mix of experience, and it can't be so top heavy where your oldest players are the ones that are expected to play the most minutes. You cannot be looking at Steph and expecting him to be playing 38, 39, 40 minutes a night, which is what the Warriors had to have him do because they weren't winning games. And Steve Kerr was put in the tough situation where he couldn't afford to give Steph a night off because this team was barely over 500 and couldn't get even into playoff position. So then you're forced to run Steph out there for longer stretches of time. Draymond for longer stretches of time. Clay has dealt with inconsistencies, but still has been contributing major minutes. At some point, you've got to be looking to find younger pieces that you can put into those big minutes, big burden situations so that you can give Steph some rest, give the older players some rest, and allow them to preserve their bodies for the big moments and the big plays and the bigger games that you really need them to perform top notch. Because at some point, the excess minutes takes a toll on the body for these older players. And now you want to add in a Jimmy Butler to the mix. I don't like looking at a team where your 4 best players are 30, mid 30s plus, like I said, 34, 35, 36, etc. And that's putting Clay still in that conversation because we still don't know what the outcome of his offseason is going to be. So he very well may not be back there. So even if it's Jimmy Butler, Draymond, Steph, I still would like to see them add a star who's in that 25 to 30 range. Someone that is younger, that can handle the bigger workload, and you don't have to worry about the injury issue because with older players, you have to manage minutes. You have to keep an eye on that, and especially with an injury-prone player who's had a history of knee problems. So that's why, to me, Jimmy Butler is not the piece that the Warriors should be going after. Is he a good player? I like him as a player. Great defender. Talks a little bit. I personally enjoy it. I'm from Chicago. I followed him when he was drafted with the Bulls. It's been fun to watch him go from coming into the league, immediately establishing himself as a great defender to establishing himself as a scorer. I think he'd be an upgrade to Andrew Wiggins, but there's just too much of a downside to where I think there are better pieces the Warriors can pursue. And then you also look at what they'd have to do to get Jimmy Butler because the amount of money that he wants, they would have to move young pieces to get a 34, 35-year-old star who's probably on his last big contract. So that to me is the big issue and why the Warriors should not be looking at Jimmy Butler as a prime target. The NBA Finals are underway. The Dallas Mavericks taking on the Boston Celtics. The series has not been kind to the Mavs so far. They're down 0-2 heading into Game 3 Wednesday night. Luka Doncic, the far and away leading scorer prop player at -160. Next closest is Jason Tatum at +330. There is a reason why Doncic is so high. Lay the extra juice, and you should feel confident about that bet. Doncic knows he's going to have to come out and really put his stamp on this game because his Mavs desperately need a win. They cannot go down 0-3 in the series. That goes without saying. If you want to bet on that, the place to go is FanDuel Sportsbook. Not just the NBA Finals either. You can bet on baseball. You can do it all. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on everything from the Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, back to the topic at hand. Want to wrap things up and talking about the possibility of Jimmy Butler to the Golden State Warriors. I'm against the move because of the age, because of the price tag. The other piece of this is the fact that he wants a max extension. The Warriors are already dealing with a salary cap problem. They would have to move major pieces to make way for him. I don't think you give up young players. Jonathan Kuminga is going to be a player that a lot of teams are interested in when trade discussions do start to happen. You don't want to move a Jonathan Kuminga. I don't want to move a Brandon Pujemski. I don't want to move a Moses Moody to bring in a 35-year-old star who's dealt with injury problems. That's the bottom line. Now, is Butler to the Warriors even a possibility? Okay, so some rumors were flying around, and some people have asked me about this, about Jimmy Butler to LA. The reason this all happened is because he made a cryptic comment, a post during a Los Angeles Sparks game. He said, for some reason, 22 looks good in purple and gold. Butler was referring to Sparks rookie, who also happens to be Steph Curry's god sister, Cameron Brink, who also wears 22. Still, basically, the internet went crazy when he posted that, like, ooh, he is alluding to the fact that he might be interested in the Lakers. He did shut that down right away. Video posted on the Sparks Instagram page. He said, first and foremost, y'all see this jersey I'm wearing right now. 22 purple and gold says Brink, not Butler, unfortunately. Sorry, LA fans. But hey, shout out to you, Cam. Thank you for all the love and support. So there you have it. He immediately shut down rumors about going to the Lakers. He has said no such thing about the Warriors, despite the fact that, as I mentioned, the internet started going nuts about the possibility of Jimmy to the Warriors after he posted about his little jaunt to Palo Alto. So could there be mutual interest there? Reports are out that if the conversation opens or the Heat open up conversations, that the Warriors would want to be a part of it or at least consider it. The fact that Jimmy hasn't shut it down, maybe you can read into it. I don't know. He's not my pick, though. I think that they can find younger stars who would be better fit and help the longevity of this Warriors team while also fitting the window of trying to win now with Steph. Number one, Pelicans, Brandon Ingram. That's a name that's been thrown around a lot. 26 years old. So you're looking at younger, averaged right around 21 points per game, more than 5 rebounds, 5.7 assists on nearly 49.5% shooting from the floor, and then right around 35.5% shooting from three-point land. Okay, some ups and some downs for this. He's not going to be a prolific shooter like a Klay Thompson, as I just mentioned, his three-point shooting numbers, who's going to be that major floor spacer that you're looking for alongside Steph, because that's something that I look for as someone who can really hit the long range. And that's going to, favor the Warriors game as a whole because they want to space the floor. But he is a player who could definitely elevate this Warriors team because he can still score the basketball in a variety of ways, 3-level score. His ball handling could help Steph Curry play more off ball and ensure that there are some other options in the half-court sets. He can score the ball in a couple of different ways, which does force defenses to stay honest. Even if he's not like a prolific three-point shooter, you have to guard him. You have to be aware of it where he's at. He is still going to draw attention. I also like the idea of having that ball handling to allow Curry to play off ball and to help open up space for him that way. Now, the situation with Ingram is that, okay, actually, I want to mention a report really quick, is that a Western Conference executive told Heavy on Sports anonymously that the Warriors could be among the teams interested in acquiring Ingram. So that's an important piece. And here's part of the quote. For what they're looking for, Ingram is the kind of guy they will be in the market for because he is a player who can score, but is a little bit damaged goods. And maybe the price is lower than it ought to be. But, you keep him healthy, you're careful with him, and he can carry you through. He is still young, and that is absolutely what they want, end quote, according to an executive speaking with Heavy on Sports. Based on that, the Warriors reportedly would be interested or looking into bringing in Ingram. The point about damaged goods, he certainly doesn't have a perfect track record with health. I do think the skill set is complementary. And then when you look at the numbers, there's 1 year left on his current $158 million deal. Ingram would likely have to give the Warriors some assurances that he would sign beyond that if they traded for him, because like a 1-year rental player doesn't necessarily do the Warriors any favors. But still, I think he brings a lot to the table. He can facilitate. You're talking about a 3-level scoring wing. He has the ability to rebound. And the Warriors can get him at a decent price, which also is a big factor when they have to continue to track the salary cap and try to figure out how they're going to bring in a big piece who can be a secondary scorer alongside Steph without just blowing up in luxury tax and keeping all of the pieces together. The health issues that I alluded to, Ingram, after playing 79 games his rookie season of 2016-2017, hasn't reached the 70-game mark since. So that's not a great sign. Also, defensively, you're not going to get the elite defender that you would with a Jimmy Butler. He never just really reached the prime, to me, of what he should be defensively. Ingram has physical tools, and he also just played terrible in the series in New Orleans as they got swept. So that also doesn't bode well. I think that was a tough matchup for him, but, maybe that downside there, again, brings down his price. Would he be a decent fit for the Warriors if you don't have to move a Jonathan Kuminga? I say yes. So that's where I say the Warriors should at least explore the conversation. I think that there's a fine line in what you're willing to give away for Brandon Ingram. I would be totally open to it if they keep Jonathan Kuminga and bring in Ingram and move Andrew Wiggins. Draft capital, the Warriors don't have a lot of draft capital, but like Wiggins and another young player. If Kuminga's out of the conversation, I think the Warriors should be open to it, and it's something that they should consider. One other concern for me about Brandon Ingram is that he reminds me a little bit of Andrew Wiggins, and that inconsistencies. He seems to have on nights, off nights. Some nights he seems like maybe not 100% there, a little bit of a wild card. So that to me is another legitimate concern about the possibility of the Warriors pursuing Brandon Ingram, but I don't think he's a bad option. So I think that's something that should definitely be considered. Now, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let me tell you about something that is stressing me out right now, and it is the rising cost of just living. You've got real estate, which is ridiculously expensive. You've got the cost of gas going up, inflation just making groceries more expensive. It's just ridiculous. It's so hard today for Americans just to be able to get by, and financial restraints and struggles cause so much anxiety and stress for a lot of folks. And when you're dealing with that, it can be extremely helpful to talk to someone. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a family member, but a great way to really get this kind of stuff off your chest is by talking to a professional. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. If you're dealing with any kind of stress or anxiety, all of us are. I am. Like I said, there's so much going on in America right now. It is a great time to talk to someone. There should be no stigma to pursuing help. And then you can make it so convenient with BetterHelp. Get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba today to get $10 off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. Make sure you do that today. So, Brandon Ingram, a viable option for sure. Here's another option that's maybe not as viable and a little bit or a lot of bit of a long shot, and that's Utah Jazz 7-footer Lauri Markkanen. He just turned 27 literally 2 weeks ago. So there we go, a star who's under 30. That's all I'm asking. He's likely to get a big payday because he's coming off an incredible season, his first all-star campaign. And here's his skill set. He's a true stretch big who can shoot the ball, and he's athletic enough to not be a liability. He would be a great fit with the Golden State Warriors. Averaged 23.2 points per game, 8.2 boards, 2 assists on 48% field goal shooting and nearly 40% shooting from three. You love to see it. The problem is with Lauri Markkanen is that I don't think the Jazz are going to let him go. The smart thing is not to let him go. But just in terms of the skill set, he would be an unbelievable fit next to Draymond Green. That's what this team needs. A stretch four to continue what the Warriors already have in outside shooters and help space the floor and just open up the entire offense would be insane. And he also has a center size, and that doesn't help or doesn't hurt either. You've got the raw size of a center, a shooting guard skill set. He's got just such a smooth and quick release. It's fun to watch him shoot from the outside. And he's hard to guard with that length and size too. He can create his own shot, and then he like towers over defenders because Markkanen is, 7 foot. And at the 4, that's a pretty tough mismatch because you're looking at someone who is the size of a center, but the skill to step out from outside, fairly mobile, fairly nimble. Not all players who are down in the post can necessarily step out and guard out on the perimeter. And he just has a huge advantage because of that unique skill set. Not the quickest, not the most athletic, not an incredible ball handler. You see now more teams picking up the small forward position. Not going to be that big shot blocker, physical inside presence, rim protector. But that's okay. The Warriors also have a physical presence in Draymond Green, who is a small center, that's for sure, but still could be a very viable option if you pair him up with a stretch 4 like a Lauri Markkanen who has this incredible skill set. Now back to the problem with Lauri Markkanen. All reports that I've been reading, everything I've been hearing, they want to keep him. The Jazz want him to be a part of the future. They feel confident they're going to reach a deal on an extension that makes Markkanen happy while still giving them at least some level of flexibility moving forward. He is signed for 1 more year at $18 million, but he is in for a payday. The elite skill set, the elite season he's coming off of, he would be a wonderful addition to the Warriors. I do think that picking him up is going to be the problem because the Utah Jazz would be dumb to let him go. I know that front office is going to make every effort to keep him around, to pay him whatever it is that he wants to be paid. So there you have it. We are going to break down a lot more free agent targets, trade targets for the Warriors in the coming weeks. I'll have some different guests on. We will deep dive and profile some different options for the Warriors, and more are going to pop up as the rumor mill is only going to get crazier heading into actual free agency, which technically opens on June 26th. Now, you know, conversations are going on around behind the scenes. That doesn't necessarily indicate the start. It's the official start, though, and there's going to be more coming out in the weeks leading up to that. Okay, the final thing I want to touch on is imagine you go to the gym, Lifetime Fitness. Maybe you want to play a game of pickup basketball, and in walks NBA superstar, one of the greatest shooters of all time, Steph Curry. Says, hey, can I play with you? You can't say no. And suddenly, Steph Curry is just draining threes right over your head and hitting the night-night on you. Yeah, well, that's exactly what happened for some gym goers in Folsom, California, which is in the Sacramento area, this past weekend. Just chilling at the gym, trying to play a game of pickup, and the 4-time NBA champion, 2-time NBA MVP, a million-time NBA All-Star, Steph Curry just walks in and decides to get in on a light workout while hanging around. There's some videos of it that are out there on social media. You can look it up. Again, sinking threes, showing off the handles, doing what Steph Curry does. And the reason why he was there reportedly is that one of his daughters was playing in a volleyball tournament at Roseville throughout the weekend. I assume it would be Riley, the oldest, but not entirely sure. He was in the area because his daughter was playing volleyball, supporting her at a tournament, decided to go get in a quick workout, ended up just dropping in on some gym goers. I mean, how incredible would that be? And Steph Curry has tons of fans in the Sacramento area. I'm being a little bit facetious here. Steph Curry has put the Sacramento Kings to bed a couple times throughout his NBA career. Actually, here I have his stats against the Sacramento Kings specifically. Curry's averaged 24.7 points, 5.2 boards, nearly 7 assists in 46 career regular season games against the Kings, shooting more than 48% from the field and a cool 43.3% from three-point range. So I'm sure folks around Sacramento were thrilled to see him. But honestly, Curry is one of the most likable stars in the NBA. He is a legend. So I think regardless of what team you root for, if Steph Curry walks into your gym and asks to join in on a game of pickup, you say yes, no matter what, no matter how bad he is going to embarrass you. So good for those gym goers for being up to the challenge. Kudos to them for a really, really cool experience. And I love the budding, I'm saying budding, but the budding rivalry between the Warriors and the Kings. The Kings are finally relevant enough to where there is a back and forth after being so bad for so long. It's been fun to watch. They still aren't quite over the hump to where they're really able to make deep runs in the playoffs, but they're knocking on the door. And I've really enjoyed some of these battles between the Warriors and Kings the last couple seasons, and hopefully more to come. Hopefully Steph Curry stops embarrassing people in pickup games, though, because, you know, he's got to rest up. He's got a big season ahead and possibly an Olympics to play in. We'll keep you posted on all that. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. All right, thanks for hanging. Want to mention this week, got a couple great guests coming up. NBC Sports Bay Area, Zena Cato, one of my good friends, coming on the show. Aaron Wilson of Cron, who covers the Warriors, going to be coming on talking about a number of different topics. Is the window still open? Do the Warriors still have a chance to make a title run with Steph Curry? What do they think about the fit of possible Jimmy Butler and other pieces? So we're going to break down that and a ton more topics coming up throughout the week. So be sure to continue to check in here on Locked On Warriors. Have a great rest of your day, night, whenever or wherever you're listening. We appreciate you hanging here on Locked On Warriors.